Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Real quick before we get started, today is September 11th, so just wanted to, it's hard to believe it's been 23 years. Like many of you, I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing, quite an unbelievable day. So thank you again to our first responders, who really showed their work, their mettle. I guess we'll leave it at that for now. But anyway, just wanted to acknowledge that. So we've got one item on the agenda. It's informational. Won't be taking any vote. But 2023 was a really big year for our planning department. We produced a new farmland protection plan, which was really, really nicely done and put together. A lot of effort, a lot of thought, a lot of input from the community. And we passed that. And then a little bit later in the year, Plan Onondaga, same thing, really well put together, a lot of input from the community, really from the bottom-up type plan, not top-down. And so anyway, as part of that, we asked that on occasion, the folks from the planning department come over and give us an update on the implementation of Plan Onondaga, what we're seeing, good things, bad things, the whole 9 yards. So we have our new director is here, and we did give him a couple of months, come on up, we did give him a couple of months to get his feet on the ground before we put him in the hot seat, but
Good morning.
So here we are. Floor is yours.
Floor is mine. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me, for coming here. It's been just about 60 days that I've been in the planning department. It's amazing. County government is great. I come from state government, which is entirely different. But the planning department, seeing the work they do and looking over the work they've done, and it's amazing the amount of output and work they have and the things they touch. And with the people they have, it's a great attribute to the planning committee for supporting them and the county executive's office. But it's really amazing the amount of work they do. But thank you for having me. I'll just start by saying if the chairman hasn't mentioned it, and if he hasn't, I'd either be disappointed or surprised. But the Lafayette Apple Festival is coming up on October 12th and 13th.
It did happen to come up yesterday at the facilities committee meeting.
Totally
out of the blue.
If he hasn't told you, it is the largest event in upstate New York between Lafayette and Navarino.
There you go. Yeah.
But I think Plan Onondaga, it's a great plan.
We can adjourn the meeting now. Yeah, I think we're done.
The chairman asked me to put in plugs wherever I go about the Apple Festival, so I go shopping. I put in a plug with the cashier.
Yeah, there you go. Free advertising.
But the 5 pillars of Plan Onondaga are great pillars, and they're great ones to talk about. We're probably farther ahead in some areas than we are in others, but there's movement going on in all. When you look at the 5 pillars, the first are the strong centers, and creating those vibrant, amenity-rich areas where there are walkable communities, where you have retail, you have housing, you have recreation, you have eating. We can do all of that, and then it's just more of a gelling of the community in that one area. A place you can come out, and even if you don't live there, but you can come out and you can see the people, see your fellow community members, and really get that sense of community. And you see it happening. And, obviously, Armory Square is probably the biggest example that you can think of close to us, but it's happening around the county. It's going to happen differently depending on where you are. Obviously, what happens in the city of Syracuse is going to be different than what happens at the Crossroads in Lafayette or Manlius or any of those other areas. Part of what we're trying to do, at least in this first part, is make sure the municipalities have the tools they need and what they want to actually see it come to fruition. Part of that is, we've been working on the town planning grants over the last several years, and that continues to be important and popular with municipalities. And so far we've committed about over $1 million to municipalities to update their comprehensive plans and zoning plans. And there's another 250,000 or so in discussion with municipalities who are interested in updating those plans. But that's really the basis of the start of the foundation on which to build, their future plans as a community, whether it's town centers, housing, which we're going to get into. All that involves them having a solid base to really be able to move upon. Which brings us to housing. The housing needs assessment came out right before I started. It said about 24,000 new housing units in Onondaga County, I think by 2040. And that's a big number. And Central Empire State Development did a similar housing study, except they included all of Central New York, and they came up with similar numbers, obviously bigger numbers when you include all of Central New York. One of the most interesting things they noted was at some point, 50% of the housing that's going to take place in this build out in Central New York is going to require some sort of assistance incentive. And that doesn't mean a direct incentive. That could mean help with infrastructure. That could mean help with a lot of things. But to get this housing up, especially where building costs are right now, are going to require, and to make it affordable for people, it's going to require some sort of incentive or some sort of help with that. But not to go back to this, but some of that is also just getting that housing up and going is really helping the towns plan it out. Let's face it, the county can't go in and mandate that towns do X, Y, or Z in terms of zoning. But we can provide the tools, we can provide the care to help them along and really hold their hands and get them going with that. That's where the town planning grants come in, that's where a lot of other things come in. But when you're looking at all that said, things are happening. I mean, we keep track of residential development more so than just building permits. And if you look at from when Micron was announced to today, there's over 15,000 housing units either in development or in the process. They've either been proposed or in the process. And that's a good number to start out with. It's a solid base to move forward on. You're seeing that start to increase. I mean, I grew up in Central New York. I love Central New York. It's a skeptical community, right? So it's still bringing along the people who want to be skeptics, but I think you're starting to see that change to some extent, especially when you start talking about 15,000 units.
Can I hop in? And I meant this to be a conversation. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. So 15,000, is that based on applications to town and village and the city planning departments, or how's that number come up?
It's based on that. It's based on as we go along and we collect information from developers and municipalities and along the line, just putting all that into basically a database and keeping track of it.
It's a big number.
It's a big number. We used to collect building permit information, which is somewhat useful, not always complete. So this just became a better way to actually kind of track those developments that are in process or in development.
So to that point, it's a good question. Are we kind of tracking that? Like, how do we know? Like, so if Cicero, right? Cicero is doing a development. Are we in talking, and we in conjunction, or do we do some sort of a sharing of information where we would know if this developer, myself and Dave own a construction company, and we filed an application, and we're going to put in, we just bought it, we're going to put in 40 new houses in a development. And obviously we would have to go in front of the Cicero Planning Board or Zoning Board, well, whatever.
Probably
and
county
then
board.
County
Yes,
board or whatever.
most of us, when we had a project like that, before the planning board or the zoning board would approve it, we would send it to SOC. At that time it was SOCPA, now it's OCPA. And OCPA sends us their comments, their questions, so that you can be tracking it from that standpoint.
Yeah, you gotta forgive me, it's been 13 years since I was chair of the zoning and planning committee.
They might not have done that back
Oh, I don't think, no, I'm gonna tell you we did not. I know for a fact we did not.
Yeah.
But no, it's important because I think knowing, like having a handle on that right off the bat, after we have 15,000 new units that are in the works, right? And then the city might have it, so there's gonna be a new market rate or wherever it's gonna be. Because I think we invested a lot of taxpayers' money into a plan that says we're gonna add housing stock. I think it's good to know where that housing stock is being added, so we know.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And it starts to tell the complete story. It starts to tell the whole story. Because the taxpayers did invest a lot of money and plan on it in the housing study, and they're going to want to see results. And results are happening. I mean, maybe a little slower than we'd like, maybe, but it'll catch up.
But I think you can only incentivize so much. There's only so much that you can do, and there's only so much that we can do to incentivize, but if people don't wanna, if developers and if people who build those homes, we're not in the home building business. But if they don't want to, then it's hard.
I assume the Chris and Dave Construction Company will probably be a union shop. Number one.
Yeah, prevailing wage rate,
Yeah,
yeah.
Just check. Kevin?
On that number, 15,000, what are the dates?
What are the
What are
dates?
the dates that you said?
So from the time Micron was announced, I don't have the exact date to today, so it's real time. I mean,
Let's say a year. What year do you think that would be?
well, from the time, what year? To 22, 23, somewhere.
And of those 15,000, are those single-family residential or?
They include multifamily and single family.
So
Yeah.
what about the single-family residential number? Do you have that number?
Not off the top of my head, I can get that for you. I didn't-
Because I think that's that's one of the most important, is single-family residential. And some focus should be put there and some incentives should be put there if we could do that.
I can get you that number.
Yeah, the breakdown will be interesting.
Thank you.
And it's,
Yeah, have you thought about taking, because I love the approach to bottom up, to going to the planning boards and the zoning boards for these towns and villages in the city and doing a little plan on Onondaga work session with them so that you can show them, because I spoke in front of our town planning commission and then they had requested copies of the plan and now they've requested some more information. I think it's good information, I think it's good training, maybe it's that regional training session we have in March at the Theon Center. Just to keep that education level, to keep that buy-in program, to keep that, our plan, their plan, everybody's plan, working together, because some of them might not know that there's
absolutely.
these programs out
Yeah, I've
there.
gone on and met with most of the town supervisors and mayors. I mean, and we do have our regional planning program in March, and this was going to be part of it. But we can definitely step up going out and actually meeting with the individual planning boards and so on.
Because they're a town, I mean,
Absolutely.
they're appointed by the town board, but they're not, or the village board, but they're
They're their own entity.
They're exactly, you're not allowed to, but you're allowed to help them with educational and opportunities and grants and things like that.
Absolutely. We can definitely step that up. All right, so let's talk about
Sorry to throw you off here.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. As the chairman said, I mean, if you have any questions or anything, just interrupt, or if you're sick of what I'm talking about, you can get up and leave. I won't take it offensively. But community mobility is like the third pillar in that. You talk about community mobility. In my opinion, you talked about food deserts when I first came in to get appointed. We have mobility deserts in this county too, and that's both rural and urban in a lot of things. When you have a community that's relying on cars, unfortunately, it creates a system where you do have haves and have-nots. And how do you get people to work? How do you get them to recreation? How do you get them to school events and that sort of thing? And that's part of what community mobility is, among other things. And yeah, there's some work going on in that, and there's going to be more work coming. I don't have the answer to how you actually move people around that quickly or that way. But when you look at the broader scope of what else community mobility means, I mean, we work with the SMTC, which is the regional kind of transportation planners, and we're working with them on everything from the Route 31 transit corridor to Safe Routes to Schools programs, the Brewerton Trail Network. And we've also received some federal money for a Vision Zero study, and we're going to be putting an RFP out for that, which is really to end or greatly reduce and bring to zero the number of deaths on roadways. And then, we move into kind of tied to that are the greenways and blueways. And greenways and blueways they're nice to talk about, quite frankly, but they're also important to a community. They're another accoutrement to a community. They're another thing that brings people in. They're another recreational outlet, another social outlet. They serve people of all places on the socioeconomic ladder and all places within the county. So, and they're a great form of transportation in some ways from community to community. So, the dividends that are made by investing in greenways and blueways are huge, just in terms of getting people out and get outside walking, jogging, et cetera. And then the economic part of that, when you build these greenways and blueways and you build into that for the communities, they go through an economic plan that they can benefit from. So we're looking at ways to expand both the greenways and blueways and also help with maintenance. Obviously, you build these things or you put these things in and then there's no money for maintenance. So we're looking at how do we help municipalities maintain them. And one of the ways we're doing that is we're starting to develop a Greenways and Blueways grant program that would assist municipalities. They certainly have ideas all over the board about where these could be put in, how to maintain them, how to expand them. So we're looking at kind of developing a Greenways and Blueways grant program. And we're also we're scoping an RFP to engage a service of planning firm to further assist in identifying places where these could happen, places where they interconnect. I think the interconnection part of that's important when you start looking at moving people, from community to community, and then, how begin scoping. What are the construction costs? What do we have to do? What's the next steps to actually? What are the realistic next steps to actually implementing this and getting these blueways and greenways, up and running and going, so that they do benefit the community.
So you mentioned a grant program for greenways and blueways. What would be kind of can you give me an example of maybe like a municipality, like a town?
Town of Geddes has an idea for a greenway, or in their case a blueway, taking into account 9 Mile Creek and Onondaga Lake to some extent. We would provide some funding to help them vision it and then actually go to the next step.
Hypothetically speaking, they have a greenway that they want to connect in the cul-de-sac at the end of Dwight Park Drive and connect it to the Loop to Lake Trail.
Yeah, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Yeah.
Well, they go to that interconnectivity too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then they could apply and say, put the plan forward, and then obviously they would have to do all of the seeker and everything else, and they would present a plan and say, this is what we have, and they say, okay, well, great, we can help fund that. Is that what you're?
Yeah, we haven't gamed this all out, but yes, that would be the basic logistics of it.
Conceptually.
Conceptually, yeah.
And built by C&D Construction.
So now it's C&D, I like that. I like C&D.
As long as it's a union shop and you're paying prevailing wage, I'm fine.
Kevin?
Just was reading my mind and asked the exact question I had, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
And it's really conceptual. We're trying to game that out, the details and everything, to see how it would work, but we think it's an important part of it to really, municipalities, as you said, Mark, it's bottom up. Municipalities are the ones who really control a lot of this and can really have the input that makes a difference. So this gives them some investment to be able to do that.
And their grant resources are tough because they're competing statewide for these CFA grants or these, parks grants. So it's a little bit easier if it's countywide.
Absolutely.
To apply for that and get that funding for that connectivity. So.
And when you have that, then it becomes, how does that benefit, Geddes, if you have this? How does it benefit, Elbridge or Lafayette or Camillus? And when with the Empire Trail, there's a local economic opportunities plan that was put together that kind of mapped out, with the Empire Trail going through this area, Jordan could do this, another town could do that. And I envision something similar for when these trails are built up to a mass of a big enough level to really be able to go in and do another opportunities plan for these communities. And it gives them ideas about an investment here, an investment there. You can capture people coming off the trail, they'll spend money in your community, which ultimately generates sales tax for the county and helps fund other services. But it's not just a trail of going out and enjoying nature, it's also a trail of economic development for a lot of these communities. And then finally, agriculture. Save the best for last, right, Mr. Chairman? In addition to the Apple Fest, which is October 12th and 13th.
Wow.
We also have the free parking, generally in mud, by the way, but that's okay. We have the On-Farm Fest on Saturday, September 21st from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can come out, you can visit 12 different farms, so you can hang out with longhorn cattle, you can fall in love with alpacas, you can learn about maple syrup, you can cap it all off with a great glass of wine at Daniela's. And it covers all across the county, 12 farms all across the county. And it's grown, the chairman can give you a better history than I can, but it's certainly grown over the years where now it's hundreds of families coming out on this Saturday between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. and really getting out of the house, enjoying another recreational activity in Onondaga County, but learning about agriculture, which is important. I grew up with farms all around me, and my knowledge of agriculture when I was young was pretty slim. So it's not just folks in urban areas, it's folks in rural areas and in suburban areas who can learn a lot about agriculture and going on, seeing the sustainable dairy production going on at Twin Birch and really get a feel for it all, well, just enjoying it. You know, when I was at the fair, I used to say you have to trick people into education, right? You don't come to the fair to be educated. You don't necessarily come to these firms to be educated, but it is an essential tool to actually educating people once they're there. So that's going on September 21st. The agritourism grant program is kind of beginning to wind down at this point. Yeah, I think, you know, we've given out over $790,000 in funding that's generated almost $3 million in private match and investment to over 50 applicants in Onondaga County. And part of the reason I say it's winding down is I think you've just hit, and you can disagree or disagree, but we've hit most of the folks who would be eligible and had projects. We've hit most of them, and I think they've gotten some grant funding.
Frankly, I was amazed going through that process with how many different agritourism things are going on in the county. And a lot didn't apply. I know several down in my neck of the woods that, yeah, we're like, yeah, timing isn't right for us. We're not doing anything, so we're not. But yeah, a lot of incredible amount of diversity and creativity, especially.
There really is. There are some great projects that got funding, and you know, help these operations grow, expand, you know, and really open themselves up to more people coming. And the importance of that goes back to agricultural education, but it also goes back to sales tax. I mean, purchases are being made at these agritourism operations, which generate sales tax in Onondaga County. These aren't just folks in the county; these are folks coming from outside the county, whether it's Beacon's Gift or Navarino Orchards or any of the other ones that are really drawing people from outside the county to spend their money in the county. The regional, oh, sorry.
Have you been asked to get involved in the regional market? I don't know if you were just about to talk about that.
That was my next goal.
Oh, good. Okay. I'll be quiet and I'll ask, or I'll listen.
So the regional market, you know, the regional market is truly the gray mare of markets in upstate New York. You know, it's a queen bee. It was founded in 1935. It's the largest. It has a 50-acre campus. It draws 20,000 visitors a day on their Saturday market. And yes, we've gotten involved in the regional market because I think we all recognize at one point it was a gem. It's still a gem. It just needs to be polished up a little at this point. So we issued an RFP for a consultant to come in and kind of do a head-to-toe examination of the facility that includes, you know, looking at its finances, looking at its buildings, and starting to vision out what is the market. What do we all want the market to be today, tomorrow, and in 20 years from now? So that as investment takes place, whether it's from the county or the state, they feel, you know, they feel as though that investment can be made and it will be put to good use. And it's not a small investment if you went in and really looked at all of the buildings at the market. You know, it's a tens of millions of dollars investment, but what gets that going? And then identifying, you know, realistic and aspirational programmatic themes and how do you generate more revenue, and, you know, not just on the Saturday markets. So we put that RFP out. We received 3 responses, all very good responses. We ended up going with a company called Market Ventures out of Maine. And we went with them in part because this is mostly what they do, is really work with regional type markets to rebuild themselves, to kind of move towards the next 10, 20 years. But also, most importantly, yeah, you put one of these out, everybody talks about the work they've done at Hunts Point. Hunts Point is a $2 billion a year operation out in the city. You know, Market Ventures has actually worked with markets our size, whether it's Cleveland, Rochester, or the Eastern Market in Detroit. So they have a lot of experience dealing with markets our size. We have the wholesale element, the retail element, you know, and that's really the reason we chose them. It's just their breadth of experience for something for us. They are coming into town to make their first official visit this weekend. They're going to meet. They're going to tour the market. They're going to, you know, both when it's not operating, tour the buildings, and tour the Saturday and Sunday market. Talk to vendors, board members, staff, other interested parties, you know, customers. From there, we're going to do intercept surveys, and we're going to have a summit that really begins to bring together a group of people about, you know, those basic questions. Where do you see the market? Where do you want the market to go? What does it mean to you in many cases? And how you take all of that and package it into a kind of a strategic vision going forward. We'll have a partial report by the end of December. The partial report won't necessarily be the finances and the governance part of it, but it'll be enough so that, you know, Assemblyman Magnarelli or others can go to the legislature for possible funding for the market as well. But yeah, it's a great piece of real estate. It's just a great historical institution in central New York. And now it's the time to really get in there and get our arms around it and kind of rebuild it for the next 20 or 30 years.
I guess not a question, more of a comment, but I've learned, I'll be the first one to say, I've been really, a lot of my time on the legislature, not a lot with agriculture. But getting to learn a little bit more about it, what I've heard in other areas outside of, my ledge district, that the regional market, sometimes you can't differentiate which is local grown and which is not local grown. And I'm kind of just more of a comment, but I'm hopeful that when we get to that point, we kind of write this and we make changes, that there will be an opportunity. So when I walk in to the market, regional market, and I am gonna go buy some apples or some lettuce, some romaine lettuce, it doesn't matter. I wanna buy that, I want those apples to come from Lafayette. I want that lettuce to come, those peppers I wanna buy those, I wanna help the person who's in Fulton, right? So not just out of town, that's what I've heard, that sometimes they bring them in, it'll be extra, and then you're actually buying that produce is from California. So is there any, not for conversation, for somewhere down the road that truly we've done Onondaga Grown, it's a great program, but if we're really gonna, I think, put this, and we put dollars behind it, really, 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 truly try to put an emphasis in publicize and make sure that when I walk in, I'm buying that from Central New York, not from some other place that got brought in. 'Cause I want to know.
Absolutely.
I was actually surprised to find out that how much isn't necessarily like, well, that's not right. And I kind of, so anyway, more of it's just a comment. It's not a question or just a.
Well, I think it's an important comment. I mean, you do want to walk into, especially the regional market, or any farmer's market, but that's one thing if you walk into Wegmans and they don't really tell you where the produce is from, but when you walk into a local market, you're hoping most of that produce is locally grown. I agree with you. So we definitely can take a look at that. And there's other things. I mean, in Troy's world, I'd have a place to aggregate, fruits and vegetables out there for sale to institutions and things like that where you could really use it. I'd have more of the new American communities come in, some of which already are, including the Deaf Farm out of Kirkville, but really have the new American communities come in and really highlight them at certain times as if they're trying to grow and sell and everything. And I think that'll all be part of it.
Tie the schools in too, because using that.
Institutions.
I'm in Albany all the time, and they're doing that right now. Or I was in near Turin, New York, and they spent their whole summer taking vegetables from local farmers and then processing it to use during the school year. So that they work basically 12 months a year processing that food so that they're ready to go, so that the students are eating the zucchini, the summer squash. So now there's pumpkins and other things that they do, apples.
And it's an economic development generator for Central New York.
Yes.
I mean, New York State's done a nice job of pushing school districts, colleges, large institutions like that to buy local. The problem is aggregation, like you talked about. I mean, the head of the food service department at Syracuse University or Syracuse City School District doesn't want to have to call 14 different places to get broccoli. I mean,
right. Yeah.
And so that's one of the big things we're working on, and we're going to talk in this plan. I actually have prospectus right here about a food hub. They kind of a generic term for it, that brings in all the small producers in the area can bring in, and so you're not just talking one guy's little broccoli, but you're talking a whole bunch of broccoli. They can bring it in, process it, package it, flash freeze it, whatever, and then the big institution calls one place, calls the food hub, says I need this much, this many pounds of broccoli, and boom,
Right.
There they go. So the small producer wins because now they have a market, it's everybody wins, and it's not going to be any fresher or better tasting than So that's, yeah, definitely a part of the plan I'm hoping to talk about with, and whether it's at the regional market, it will make sense to be there, but, you know, maybe there's someplace else,
But it's definitely needed.
Yeah.
It's definitely needed. Any questions on the regional market?
No, that was exactly what I.
And the last thing I'd talk about with agriculture is just, you know, through the Ag Council, because there's the preserving farmland part of this, and through the Ag Council, they provided funding to the New York Agricultural Land Trust. It did kind of ramp up their efforts with working, you know, with Onondaga County farms. They've done a lot of outreach. They've done a lot more marketing type activities to really encourage farmers to apply. And the fruits of that so far they've had 805 acres permanently preserved. They have another 1,135 acres that should close in the next year, and they have another 651 acres that'll close in the next 2 years. That's 2,600, almost 2,600 acres of farmland that are preserved. That's just, and they're going to continue to work that year in and year out. And that's land that can never be developed past this point. So it'll hopefully always remain in production agriculture. Hopefully it gives the farm owner some capital to be able to expand their operation. And it's kind of a win-win for everybody at the end of the day. And the only last thing I would say is just don't forget about the Lafayette Apple Festival, October 12th and 13th. But I'd be happy to answer any questions or anything. And thank you for letting me come in.
I want to thank, you know, Troy's got a great team out there, as he mentioned at the beginning. They do a lot of work. They've been wonderful, helping with, as he mentioned at the end, the Agriculture Council and helping manage that whole thing. And you know, lots of the applications we get, visiting places, the whole 9 yards. So they're, you know, do a lot of the groundwork for this, for the On-Farm Fest coming up, as well as the Buy Local program that you hear, you know, on the radio and TV and et cetera. So, yeah, couldn't do it without that you know, great team out there. Also some very good lunch meetings, but that's neither here nor there. But where do you see us going in the next 3 to 6 months? Any thoughts on?
With the plan overall?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I see the RFP going out for the second phase of the housing study that really gets it down to the more granular issues. So then we can working directly with the towns and planning for that. The towns, let's face it, the towns that want to plan for it. You know what I mean? We're not forcing any town to do this. But I see more good news coming out of the housing end of this. Yeah, I think you're going to see some gelling around kind of the strong centers moving forward in terms of identifying those and working with those. And we've talked to some municipalities already who have ideas for that. And then, yeah, the greenways and blueways, I think, will continue to progress at a quicker and quicker level, especially once we if we can get a grant program out, that'll help get it out, get the RFP going, look at the interconnections and everything. And you know, agriculture chugs along as we go along.
I know you've been out doing a little bit of a road show, meeting with the towns, villages, et cetera. Any common themes you're hearing or anything like that? You know,
I think they all want to be supportive. I think every town wants to be supportive of this. I think every town realizes it's going to come and they have to be ready for it. I'm not sure every town necessarily understands what that means. And that's where the planning department can come in to help fill that void of what does it mean, how can you be helpful and still protect the integrity of your town or the charm of your town. But that's one of the biggest things. I mean, every town has certainly been forthcoming and bluntly honest too, which is always good.
Chairman?
I would just encourage you, to keep on with those relationships with the town, and just keep open doors and try to keep encouraging them. I know that in my town we're working on it, trying to encourage them, and there's, you know, we all sit here and we know what we feel is coming, but they're actually seeing the real projects and trying to make hard decisions and try to make change. And so I just encourage you in that to keep relationships with them, keep trying to support them in that, and, you know, we've got a lot of work to do. So, but thank you for the report, and thank you for your work. Appreciate it, I really do.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much.
You know, the other thing the planning department does, which is one of those that kind of flies under the radar, but it's incredibly important, is they're a huge asset to our towns and villages and the city in the GIS role. We've got a great department over there run by Don Jordan, and they save the towns literally thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every year by doing this, so the towns don't have to, you know, invest in this very expensive software, hire people, the whole nine yards. So that's another area that, again, kind of falls under the radar a little bit. People don't realize how much they do and how much they save for the towns, but wanted to definitely throw that out there too.
And Dave raises a good point. I mean, we do have the GIS department. We talk about planning a lot, but the GIS department is, I don't want to call it the Cinderella of the department, but it's easy to forget about it. But the maps they create and the work they do in creating those maps is absolutely amazing. They have overlay districts that can show a wide variety of things. So if you have towns or something that need maps created, I mean, certainly give us a call. The work Don does with the staff is amazing.
And they can, there's so many filters and things that they can use to get you really whatever you're looking for. Make sure it says I raised a good point. All right.
As always, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments?
Just the educational component that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and that planning symposium in March is, you know, really, really good. I try to get through it every year. Don't get to all the classes and stuff, but definitely get to the lunch. And but that's a great show. It's very, very, very well attended, always by our constituents, and so excellent.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Troy.
Thank you.
All righty, that's it for our agenda. We'll obviously be hearing more from the planning department and everything else when the budget starts tomorrow on Monday. So we're adjourned. Thank you.